Africa is known for its dictators, corruption, and constant wars, but Mauritius seems to be the exception. That's because in The Economist's latest intelligence unit report, the country came in as the #1 democracy in Africa. So in today's episode of the Rooster Report, we're going to be explaining how Mauritius got the top spot and why it may lose that spot very soon. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button so that you never miss out on any of our latest videos. I think it's first worth mentioning that 2020 was a terrible year for democracy. To make things perfectly clear, the COVID-19 lockdowns themselves were not the cause of the fall in democracies. After all, there are many countries who improved their scores despite having lockdowns. However, while anti-lockdown protesters almost never gave alternatives that would have not led to thousands of deaths, what countries should not have done is censor the media. Thus, the combination of increased militarism, the withdrawal of civil liberties, attacks on freedom of expression, and the failures of democratic accountability in many countries led some nations to plummet in the rankings. This is what makes Mauritius a true standout. After all, despite all of these pressures, it managed to rank 20th in the world. To put this into perspective, this is in front of Japan, South Korea, France, and the United States. But the big question is why? Why is Mauritius so democratic? Well, to figure this out, we need to take a quick look at the country's history. You see, after Mauritius gained independence from Britain in 1968, the situation there looked pretty dire. After all, it had been reliant on sugar for economic growth for most of the colonial period, and many predicted that along with overpopulation, this would cause the country to fall into economic despair. For a while, these critics were right, as Mauritius was quite poor well into the 1980s. However, it was in the 1990s that Mauritius was able to pull off an economic miracle and become one of the wealthiest nations in Africa. This miracle was spurred by two major economic reforms. The first was the introduction of free education for everyone from preschool to university. This was critical because it allowed the country's citizens to go from being a relatively illiterate, unskilled workforce laboring away on sugar plantations to a highly skilled one. When combined with free universal healthcare and free public transportation, these policies made it easy for Mauritians to improve their economic situation and begin establishing new businesses. But in order for these new businesses to thrive, they needed a little bit of a push, and this came in the form of export processing zones. These are areas where the state subsidizes the import of raw materials to be transformed into luxury products, with the government making these areas attractive to investors by having almost no import duties, low energy costs, and the free repatriation of capital, profits, and dividends to an investor's country of origin. It is because of this that a ton of foreign investment is continuously poured into Mauritius, and as a result, it now has thriving financial, IT, textiles, and tourism sectors. As you might expect, rich countries tend to be a lot more politically stable than poor ones, and so it was this influx of business that has allowed Mauritius to implement its vast array of public services. But beyond the economy, the country also benefits from a stable and democratic political system and a just judiciary that does not suffer from high amounts of corruption. While there are many factors at play that allow this to happen, the fact that the population is highly educated is key. After all, it is this level of education that helps Mauritians keep the government accountable, and when combined with the country's extremely high voter turnouts of between 75 and 80%, it's clear that people show up. The country also benefits from its isolation, as due to it being an island nation, it has been home to none of the cross-border conflicts that plague many of Africa's continental nations, and this has allowed it to develop in a relatively stable manner. As a final note, Mauritius has a relatively high amount of civil liberties, as despite having a lot of religious divides, the country is a progressive secular state, with groups such as racial minorities and the LGBT community being protected from discrimination under the law. Therefore, as far as African countries go, Mauritius truly is a shining star. However, in the past few years, the country has been in a downward spiral. You see, while Mauritius does well on almost every indicator, it has faced some criticism in regards to political leadership, as almost every prime minister has come from one of a handful of elite Hindu families. The country has also passed a few questionable bills into law, with the 2018 Information and Communication Technologies Act being especially brutal, as it can lead to someone being sentenced for up to 10 years in prison for posting content that can cause, quote, inconvenience, distress, or anxiety. This has been coupled with the installation of security cameras around the islands in the name of increased public safety, widespread accusations of voter fraud and foreign influence in the 2019 elections, multiple suspensions of parliament, and, quite recently, the deployment of military police on protesters who were peacefully protesting the lack of government action in the wake of the Wakashio oil spill. Therefore, we think it's fair to say that while Mauritius was a model for the African continent a year ago, if it doesn't fix up some major issues, it may soon lose its full democracy status. That's all we have for you today, everyone, and thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comments down below whether you think Mauritius will be able to continue to be a thriving democracy. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button so that you never miss out on any of our latest content. Until next time.